The elevator in this building only goes down, 15 stories deep into concrete, and above, grass, corn, and a gray cap just above the ground, past which people drive and don't even slow down. The apartments inside are all sold, every single one, for cash, because banks don't lend for this kind of thing. The richest people on the planet have long stopped buying houses. They buy exits, missile silos, islands with a single bridge and a guard post, tunnels in a limestone mountain, hotels with an extra wing underground, and at the very end, there will be a house that began construction in 2004. It is larger than any private home in America. Its owner died before construction was finished, and the bowling alley in it was never open. Welcome to the channel for the richest of the rich.
Luxury life.
The silo in Kansas. Under a concrete cap in a cornfield is a launch silo for an Atlas missile. It was drilled 60 meters down in 1960 by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The missile was taken away long ago. The hole remained. In 2008, engineer Larry Hall bought that hole for $300,000. Another $20 million went into remodeling. The result was a 15-story residential building entirely underground. The walls are almost 3 meters of concrete with epoxy impregnation. They were designed to withstand a direct nuclear strike, and nothing has changed since. The 2 entrance doors weigh 8 tons each. They have to be closed by hand with a shoulder push, and the sound of them is heard 3 floors down. 7 floors are given over to apartments. Stainless steel appliances, jacuzzis, home automation throughout the entire building. The remaining floors are common areas, a saltwater pool with a slide, a climbing wall, a cinema. There is also a library, a gym, and a grocery store with a 5-year food supply for each resident. There is a dog run, underground. Separately, there is a volcanic ash filter. It was installed in case of a Yellowstone eruption that is 1,500 kilometers away. The water in the system is purified as if every drop were contaminated. A whole floor costs $2.5 million. Half a floor, $1,300,000. Maintenance runs up to $5,200 a month, $170 a day for the lights to work and the water to heat in an apartment where you may never move. Everything is sold. There is a waiting list for the second complex next door. During the pandemic, some residents moved in for a long time. Exactly how many, Hall does not say. Hiding underground is convenient when you have a silo, but if you don't, you have to hide right in the middle of a village. The house that moves. Morning. The owner presses a button and the wall of the house slowly begins to slide sideways. A village near Warsaw, concrete boxes from the 60s, old wooden sheds, vegetable gardens, and between them, a building that opens during the day and disappears at night. During the day, the side walls slide apart on motors to the fence line and form an enclosed courtyard. Inside, there is glass from floor to ceiling, light, greenery. In the evening, everything goes back. The panels return, the shutters turn on steel hinges, and from the outside remains a gray monolith without windows and without a visible door. People on the road take it for a warehouse. The house was completed in 2009. The author is Polish architect Robert Konieczny. 567 square meters over 2 floors, which is about 9 2-bedroom apartments. Not a bunker and not a safe room, but a normal family home with a pool on the upper floor, reached via a drawbridge. The moving parts are not made of concrete. They are steel frames with cement-bonded particle boards, light enough to be pulled by built-in motors and dense enough to be impenetrable. When the panels move, only the motors can be heard, nothing else. The client set one condition: maximum security. His name was never mentioned, neither by the architect nor by the builders. The house won several architectural awards. Photographs spread all over the world, and the building, built for anonymity, is now recognized on site. It is used on weekends. The fence can move, or it can stand still, along with the person checking your name against the list. The island with a list. You can't just visit here. Well, you can, but only if the owner has notified security in advance, and real estate agents honestly warn clients. They turn you away roughly at the bridge. Indian Creek, 120 hectares of man-made land in Biscayne Bay, 1.5 kilometers north of Miami Beach. 1 road, 1 bridge, 1 checkpoint. Its own police force and its own patrol boat, circling around the clock to keep foreign boats from getting within lens range. There are 41 lots, all on the water. Residents, according to official registration, number 84 people, and their total wealth exceeds $500 billion. That's roughly $6 billion for every registered person, including children. The center of the island is occupied by an 18-hole golf club. You cannot apply, only by invitation. The initiation fee ranges from $150,000 to $500,000, plus annual dues. Jeff Bezos spent over $230 million on 3 adjacent lots and is combining 2 of them into a single estate. Why he needs the third, he hasn't explained. Tom Brady built a house here, which brokers valued at about $200 million and stopped responding to offers. Mark Zuckerberg paid about $170 million for a house that is still being rebuilt. Carl Icahn has lived here for decades. The exodus from California and New York began exactly when those states started talking seriously about taxes. Florida has no income tax. The arithmetic was short: 84 people, 1 bridge, and a patrol boat with a spotlight. And 2,000 kilometers to the north, there is a place where there are 575 neighbors, and none of them have windows. 575 concrete hillocks. One bunker cost the buyer about $4,300. He rents them out for $55,000. In 2016, entrepreneur Robert Vicino bought a plot from a local farmer in South Dakota for $2.5 million. Along with the plot, he received 575 concrete structures, scattered over almost 50 square kilometers. From the ground, the distant ones are not visible at all. They go beyond the horizon. This used to be the Black Hills Ammunition Depot, also known as Fort Igloo. From 1942 to 1967, the Army stored shells, grenades, and chemical munitions here. A town of military families grew up around the depot: a school, shops, a cinema. The Army left in 1967. The town dissolved within a couple of years, and the bunkers stood empty for half a century. Each one is about 200 square meters of floor space and an arched ceiling 4 meters high. The steel door is designed to contain an internal blast of over 200 tons. Inside, instead of windows, they hung screens displaying surface views. It is believed this helps people underground maintain their sanity longer. Water comes from deep wells, electricity from solar panels. There are 120 meters in every direction between neighbors. There is only one road here, visible for 5 kilometers, and it is constantly watched by security. Rent started at $25,000, went up to $55,000 plus $1,000 a year for the land, with a 99-year lease. Everyone fills out an application: profession, skills, reason. About a quarter are rejected. The criteria are not published. The same man also bought a second site in Germany under a limestone mountain 120 meters high. Soviet military equipment used to be stored there. 3 miles of tunnels, 34 apartments ranging from 230 square meters on 2 levels, and each resident hires their own architect. A spot in the common area is sold from 35,000 euros per person. Plans for this site include a zoo for species preservation, a DNA bank, and a seed vault. Not to survive, but to continue. The idea of gathering a menagerie underground did not originate in the 21st century. The first to do it was a man who traded in newspapers. The hill above San Simeon. Julia Morgan came to this hill almost every Saturday, 28 years in a row. In 1919, William Randolph Hearst inherited 250,000 acres of California coastline from his parents, 1,000 square kilometers of land with ocean views. He came to Morgan and said he was tired of camping on top of the hill and wanted something more comfortable. Morgan at that time was the first woman with an architecture degree from the Paris School of Fine Arts, class of 1902. She surveyed the site and began to build. She stopped only in 1947. The result was 165 rooms, 3 guest houses, 2 pools, a cinema, and its own airfield, 50 hectares of gardens with antique statues, a refectory hung with 16th century Flemish tapestries, roughly 1 finished room every 2 months, for 28 years without a break. Behind the fireplace was a hidden door. Behind the door, a private elevator, through which the owner could appear without warning in any room of the house. Guests arrived by private train, then were driven up the winding road. Along the way, you might encounter a camel, or an ostrich, or a zebra standing in the grass looking at the car. It was the largest private zoo in the world. 50 species of herbivores spread over 800 hectares. During the Depression, Hearst's finances collapsed, and in 1937, the zoo had to be dismantled. The animals were given to city parks, and when a winter storm knocked down the fence around the zebra enclosure, no one bothered to repair it. The zebras moved to a neighboring ranch and never came back. In May 1947, Hearst left the hill on doctor's orders. His companion Marion Davies turned to look at the castle and said they would return. He died 4 years later in Beverly Hills. The descendants of those zebras still graze along the first highway. Drivers pull over to the side of the road and take out their phones. The fence fell, and no one minded. The exact opposite can happen. The fence stands, but it can't help with anything. 30 hectares in the Caribbean Sea. A whole island cost less than an apartment, 60 cents per square meter. In 1978, Richard Branson came to look at Necker, 30 hectares of rock and scrub in the British Virgin Islands. The asking price for the island was $6 million. Branson offered $100,000 and was politely shown the door. A year later, the owner urgently needed money. The island went for $180,000. The authorities set a condition: build a resort or the land would be taken back. August 22, 2011, Hurricane Irene. Lightning strikes the main house where 20 people are spending the night. The house is wooden, the fire spreads quickly. Actress Kate Winslet carries Branson's 90-year-old mother Eve out in her arms. Everyone is alive, the house burned to the ground. It was rebuilt by 2013. 4 years later, Irma arrived. Winds up to 285 kilometers per hour, a direct hit on the archipelago. Branson and his team waited it out in the wine cellar under the house. Concrete, shelves of bottles, a dozen people on the floor, and a roar from above that didn't stop for several hours. When they opened the door, there were almost no trees left on the island. Roofs were torn off, equipment lay in the bushes. He never said how much the restoration cost. The cellar, to be honest, turned out to be the only bunker on the entire island, and it was built for wine. Sometimes a shelter is built in advance just in case. And then for 30 years, people pretend to be fixing televisions. The hotel with an extra wing. The ticket costs $39. The tour lasts an hour and a half. Until 1992, you couldn't pay any amount of money for it. The Greenbrier is a resort hotel in West Virginia, operating since the 18th century, hosting American presidents. In 1958, they started digging beneath it. Guests were told, "We're building a new wing. It will be a conference center." The wing was indeed built, and beneath it, at a depth of about 18 meters, they placed a shelter for the U.S. Congress. Codename Project Greek Island. Work was completed in 1961, 10,000 square meters, concrete walls about 60 centimeters thick. The main door weighs 25 tons, the second 18, and both sit on bearings so precisely that one person can move the leaf. Inside, 1,100 beds, a hall for the House of Representatives, a hall for the Senate, an infirmary, decontamination showers, a crematorium. There were enough beds for congressmen and their staff. No space was provided for wives and children at all. The food supply was calculated for 60 days. What to do on the 61st? The documents didn't specify. For 30 years, the facility was kept on combat readiness. The cover was a company called Forsyth Associates, which officially serviced the televisions in the hotel rooms. Its employees walked the corridors with tool cases, and the staff had long grown used to them. In reality, they rotated food supplies, tested communications, and checked filters. In May 1992, journalist Ted Gupp published an article in the Washington Post, after which the secrecy ended overnight. How he uncovered the story, Gupp never said. 3 years later, the bunker was taken off alert. Now tourists are guided through it, and part of the premises is leased for data storage. A secret wing under a hotel is one extreme. There is also the opposite, a palace known to the entire country, open to the public only 3 days a year. The Palace of Light and Faith. 200 stables. Each has its own air conditioner. They house polo ponies belonging to the Sultan of Brunei, Hassan al-Bolkiah. Ponies do not tolerate equatorial heat well, so the air in the stalls is cooled separately from the palace, 24 hours a day. The palace itself is called Istana Nurul Iman, which translates as Palace of Light and Faith. The Guinness Book of Records lists it as the largest residential residence on the planet, and the nearest competitor is not close. 1,788 rooms, 257 bathrooms, 5 pools, a banquet hall for 5,000 people, a mosque for 1,500 worshippers, and 110 garages. If you slept in a new room every night, touring the entire palace would take almost 5 years. The dome is covered in 22-karat gold, 230,000 square meters of total floor area, 5 times larger than Buckingham Palace and larger than the Vatican. The project was designed by Filipino architect Leandro Locsin, previously known for theaters and churches. Construction was completed in 1984 for the country's independence from Britain and cost roughly $1,400,000,000. The money comes from oil and gas. In the Sultan's garage, there are about 7,000 cars, 600 Rolls-Royces, 450 Ferraris, and 380 Bentleys. The collection is valued at $5 billion, more than the annual economy of some states. His private Boeing 747 cost $400 million, and a gold sink in it came as standard equipment. 3 days a year, the gates are open. Tens of thousands of people from the country's 400,000 citizens stand in line under the sun to shake the Sultan's hand and receive an envelope of money. The remaining 362 days, the Golden Dome simply glitters above the river. How many people live in the palace permanently is not reported. The gold on the dome is visible from the water for miles, but there is a house where the most expensive thing cannot be seen at all. It hangs on the wall and changes when a guest enters the room. The house on Lake Washington. A guest is given a small electronic badge at the entrance. Then the house itself decides what to be. The badge communicates with sensors throughout the building. If the guest is feeling cool, the room temperature drops as they walk down the corridor. If the guest has a favorite artist, their works appear on the screens on the walls around them. The house was completed in 1997, and no one had that kind of technology then. Almost no one has it today. In 1988, Bill Gates bought a plot on the shore of Lake Washington in the town of Medina for $2 million. Construction took 7 years and another $63 million, with 300 people working on the site. The name was taken from the film Citizen Kane. That was the name of the mansion the hero couldn't finish. Irony, it seems, hasn't been canceled. 6,100 square meters, 24 bathrooms, an 18-meter pool with underwater acoustics. The sand for the private beach is brought from the island of St. Lucia, and they do this anew every year. How much the sand costs is not disclosed. The house is valued at over $130 million. The property tax alone is about $1 million a year, almost $3,000 a day, before utility bills and staff salaries. November 1994, Christie's auction in New York. Up for sale is the Codex Leicester, the only notebook by Leonardo da Vinci not in a museum collection. It was being sold by the Armand Hammer Foundation. Gates won and paid more than $30 million. The buyer's name was not announced immediately. On the library ceiling is a quote from The Great Gatsby about a dream that was just within reach. Behind one of the bookcases is a hidden bar. This house was built openly, with contractors, interviews, and tours for journalists. In Hawaii, everything was done exactly the opposite. The ranch on the North Shore. Workers from one crew were forbidden to talk to workers from another, yet it was all one construction site. In early 2024, Wired magazine published an investigation reviewing that Mark Zuckerberg had been building on the north shore of the island of Kauai for almost a decade. The property is called Koulau Ranch, with an area of 570 hectares, and total investment in land and construction exceeded $270 million. That is almost $4,000 for every resident of the island. Based on plans and accounts from former contractors, the picture that emerged was this: 2 houses with a total area of 5,300 square meters, connected by an underground tunnel. Off the tunnel is a separate room of about 460 square meters, its own electricity, its own food supplies, a blast-resistant door of metal and concrete, and an emergency hatch. Non-disclosure agreements were signed by everyone: painters, electricians, carpenters, security. One former contractor compared the atmosphere to Fight Club. The first rule is not to talk about it. In 2019, a 70-year-old security guard died of a heart attack during a 12-hour shift. His family couldn't even be told exactly what he did. The signed document covered that too. A 2-meter wall around the perimeter blocked the neighbor's ocean view and cut off the breeze. There was also a direct mistake. In 2016, Zuckerberg's company filed lawsuits against local families to force the purchase of their shares in old hereditary plots, lands that had been divided among descendants since the 19th century. A scandal erupted across the state. In January 2017, the lawsuits were withdrawn, and he admitted the approach had been wrong. When Bloomberg journalist Emily Chang asked him about the underground structure, he replied that it was just a small shelter, something like a basement. None of the people who spoke with journalists had been inside. Above ground, he grows macadamia nuts and raises Wagyu cattle. And in Florida at that same time, the 20th year of construction was underway on a house larger than any private residence in the country. Its owner was still giving interviews and promising to finish. We'll get to that. The workshop in Texas. Gary Lynch smelt steel in the town of Murchison, Texas. His clients live on the other side of the planet and call him at night. His company manufactures ready-made steel shelters and buries them 3.5 meters deep. The basic model cost about $40,000, the price of a used pickup truck. The top-tier model, which the company calls the Aristocrat, goes for $8,350,000. Pool, shooting range, sauna, and an underground bowling lane. The difference between the basic and top-tier models is more than 200 times. After 2016, orders at the company grew several times over, and Lynch confirmed this publicly. In that same year, 7 completed bunkers were shipped by sea to New Zealand, in containers with no names on the documents. Next is the story he told journalists himself. A client flew to his new shelter and couldn't get inside. The hatch was covered with soil, there were no surface landmarks, nothing but grass. The man stood in the middle of his own plot on another continent, listening on the phone to where exactly to dig. Lynch never names his clients. Bunkers are shipped to New Zealand for a reason. The reason was explained back in 2011 by a man with an American passport who had spent 12 days in that country. The shore of Lake Wanaka. The application was 970 pages long. The answer fit in one line. In 2011, Peter Thiel obtained New Zealand citizenship. The ceremony took place at the New Zealand consulate in Santa Monica, California. By that time, he had spent 12 days in the country itself, less than 1% of the time usually required of applicants. Citizenship was granted under the Exceptional Circumstances Clause. He promised to invest in the technology sector. In 2017, the story surfaced and caused a scandal. A former prime minister noted that New Zealand has long been called the last bus stop before Antarctica. Far, quiet, and people go there when everything else stops working. In 2015, Thiel paid $13.5 million for 193 hectares on the shores of Lake Wanaka. That's about $7 per square meter of land with a water view. Local environmental organizations, even before the deal, had fought to reduce the number of lots for sale from 6 to 1. They succeeded. Thiel bought that one. The project was commissioned from Japanese architect Kengo Kuma, designer of the Tokyo Olympic Stadium. The complex was to be embedded into the hillside, a guest wing for 24 people, and a separate owner's block with a spa, pool, and cinema. The Queenstown Lakes district planner studied the documents and recommended refusal. The damage to the landscape could not be compensated by any means. The council refused. Thiel did not withdraw the application and did not comment. The 193 hectares function as an ordinary farm. Sheep graze on the grass, and these places are familiar to everyone from the filming of The Lord of the Rings. Sam Altman was planning to follow the same route. In 2016, around a campfire at a Y Combinator party, he calmly listed his supplies to the assembled founders. Weapons, gold, antibiotics. Also batteries, water, and gas masks from the Israeli army. And potassium iodide pills taken in advance to protect the thyroid from radiation, usually distributed to people living near nuclear plants. His pandemic plan he then described in 2 words: fly to Thiel in New Zealand. The council can refuse construction, but more often it happens differently. The house is completely finished, and then it turns out that entering it is not yet allowed. 27 floors on Altamount Road. In this house, servants do not ride the elevator with the owners. The elevators are separate for that reason. Altamount Road, South Mumbai, 27 floors, 173 meters high. By number of floors, it's modest. By height, it's like a 60-story building, because the ceilings here are twice as high as usual. 37,000 square meters of living space for one family. The garage for 168 cars occupies 6 floors, and the 7th is given over to a full-fledged service station, a 50-seat cinema, a ballroom with crystal, a spa, and a yoga studio. There is a room where a machine makes artificial snow. In Mumbai, it's hot year-round, but here you can stand in the cold. 600 people maintain the house. The building was constructed between 2006 and 2010 at a cost of nearly $2 billion. By 2023, it was valued at $4.5 billion. It was designed by the Chicago firm Perkins & Will, with structures calculated for an earthquake of magnitude 8. The interior themes are sun and lotus, and no 2 rooms are alike. On the roof are 3 helipads. None of them are certified, they cannot be used, and the family has given no explanation for this. Now for the price of a mistake. The house was completed, a housewarming was held, and they didn't move in for almost a year. The family's religious advisors concluded that the building did not comply with Vastu Shastra, the ancient Indian teaching on how a dwelling should be oriented relative to light and the cardinal directions. The most expensive private home on the planet stood empty while discussions took place. In June 2011, 50 priests conducted ceremonies for 10 days. After that, the family moved in. According to reports from 2014, the electricity bill reached up to $70,000 a month, more than $2,000 a day just for lights and air conditioning. From the upper windows, besides the sea, the slums are clearly visible. This house stands in full view of 20 million people, but the next address is unknown to anyone, and that is a condition of the deal. An address that doesn't exist. On the ceiling, the sun rises. There is no real sun here at all. Somewhere in the Czech Republic lies the largest private bunker in the world. The exact location is classified, and the seller does not disclose it even approximately. The facility was built in 1984 jointly by the governments of Czechoslovakia and the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War. Then the war ended, the country split, and the underground complex was simply forgotten for 2 decades. In 2013, a Czech entrepreneur bought the site and began converting 28,000 square meters of military installations. That's more than 4 football fields only underground. Inside, there is not a single gray corridor. The owner's apartment is 620 square meters, then 7 guest suites, a pool, and a spa, a cinema, gym, library, and a bar with a cellar for several thousand bottles. The entrance is arranged as follows. First, an airlock with facial recognition, iris scan, and palm prints. Then a decontamination chamber, sandwiched between 2 gas-tight doors. The air is purified by 2 independent systems, and one operates even when the other is completely off. The food supply is calculated for 10 years, that is 3,500 days in a row. Above ground, everything looks peaceful. A golf course, a helipad, grass, and an automatic defense system about which the company discloses no details. In the living quarters, there are virtual windows. They show a beach, a city, or a field, and the image changes with the time of day. The seasons on the ceiling follow a schedule. The facility was sold to a single buyer. The name was not disclosed. The amount was not disclosed. It is only known that he plans to house his family and key employees there. Buying a bunker is one thing. Buying an island along with its inhabitants is quite another. An island entirely. $300 million for a whole island? That's less than $1 per square meter. June 2012. Larry Ellison, co-founder of Oracle, buys 98% of the island of Lanai, 360 square kilometers, the 6th largest island in Hawaii between Maui and Molokai. 3,200 residents, many with families who have lived here for generations. These $300 million included almost everything: land, hotels, utilities, stores. The remaining 2%, the harbor, roads, and a few dozen homes that a union campaign in the 1950s had removed from the landowner's control. The island's history lent itself to this. In 1922, James Dole bought Lanai for $1,100,000 and planted it with pineapples. For a time, a significant share of the world's crop came from here. The plantation closed in 1992, and there was almost no work left on the island. Overnight, Ellison became for most locals simultaneously their employer, landlord, and electricity provider. He owns the grocery store and the gas station. He owns the newspaper. He owns the company that manages the land. Small businesses used to operate on 5-year leases. Some leases became 30-day. What an entrepreneur is supposed to do with a 30-day horizon on an island where there are no competitors and one road to the ferry, they were left to figure out on their own. The plan sounded beautiful: 100% renewable energy, hydroponic greenhouses, a campus for agricultural research. Part of it was fulfilled. $75 million went into renovating the Four Seasons Hotel, and an Olympic-sized pool was built for the residents. Part quietly changed. 150 homes promised for sale became rentals. No explanations were given. During the pandemic, Ellison moved to Lanai permanently. Private planes and yachts began heading to the island. Elon Musk and Tom Cruise were named among the guests. A night at the renovated hotel costs tens of thousands of dollars. $300 million for 3,200 residents, roughly $94,000 for every person living there. He bought the island and became everything on it at once. And in Florida, one man couldn't finish one house for 22 years. Versailles in Florida. The unfinished house was put up for sale for $75 million. No buyer was found. David Siegel founded Westgate Resorts, one of the largest private timeshare networks in the US. By 2004, he was wealthy enough to begin building the largest private home in America. The model was Versailles near Paris, only larger than the original, 8,400 square meters on 4 hectares, 13 bedrooms, 30 bathrooms, 10 kitchens, a 20-car garage and an ice rink, and a bowling alley. Then came 2008. Creditors demanded repayment of hundreds of millions at once. The company barely survived. Thousands of employees lost their jobs. Construction was frozen at the concrete shell stage, already gigantic and already recognizable. In 2012, the documentary The Queen of Versailles was released. It followed Jacqueline Siegel at the moment the money ran out. Her first trip to Walmart, a regular flight instead of a private jet, conversations with the children about why things couldn't be the same anymore. The film became iconic precisely because of this. It showed what very great wealth looks like when the mechanism beneath it stops for a second. Construction resumed. It continues to this day. The 22nd year, an estimate suggests over $100 million have been invested beyond the original calculations. The exact amount has never been disclosed. 8,400 square meters over 22 years. That's roughly 1 square meter per day, slower than building an ordinary summer house. In April 2025, David Siegel died at the age of 89. The house was not finished by that time. Zuckerberg on Kauai plants macadamia nuts and says every season brings him pleasure. Teal runs a farm on the lakeshore while the district council holds his application. The unnamed buyer of the Czech bunker waits underground, where the seasons change on the ceiling on schedule. Larry Hall doesn't say how many people live in his silo right now. And in Florida stands a house with 30 bathrooms. Started in 2004 and not finished in 22 years. The rink is flooded. The bowling alley was never opened. Write in the comments everything you think about this and subscribe to the channel for the richest of the rich. This is about luxury, wealth, and the lives of the most influential people on the planet. Thank you for watching, and right now watch our previous episodes which have already appeared on your screen.